Good morning. I nearly said good afternoon then, just. Good morning. My name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies this week for today's Monday's Musings, regardless of the time that you see this. That feels really, as we go straight into the energy, the best way to navigate them this week and in life in general, but in particular, don't jump ahead of myself. The best way to navigate the energies this week is to know that we receive what we receive as and when we need it, but also to be very aware of where we are in regards to that mindset and the impact that this has on our ability to receive in the first place. So balancing out the ability to be open, but also to acknowledge where we are in the current situation feels really important, almost like a training, an example of what 2023 is going to be about. And it feels trippy. It feels very trippy. It feels very... The energy almost feels like a year-long veil. Think Halloween. It almost feels like that kind of energy, as if we are literally walking the knife's edge of what was and what is to come in every moment next year. So a little heads up there. The biggest way to do that is to be aware of what we feel and where we're at, always in every moment. So let's bring it back a little bit. Merry Christmas, happy holy days, holidays, whatever it is you celebrated or didn't celebrate yesterday. Have an incredible day, regardless of what is going on around you. That's what came through for me yesterday. Really, that felt quite poignant to not make the most of what I had, but to actually take what I had and thrive with that rather than survive with it. And that all comes down to our own energy and how we want to play it, how we want to navigate what is occurring. Yesterday was very interesting for myself and for my family. Very different to anything that we've ever experienced. And rather than try and make it something that it wasn't, which feels very poignant, I can feel a drive behind that the upcoming week as we go into New Year. Rather than try and make something that it isn't, fit and mold. We're on Boxing Day, right? Rather than trying to get everything to fit into a nice, neat little box and make sense of things, flowing with what is in front of us, feeling what we need to feel, allowing the changes to occur. My whole day yesterday, obviously I have a virus anyway, but my whole day yesterday was doing something and then having to lie down or sit down, doing something and then having to pause and rest. And that feels very essential this week, to allow the integration of the changes that have and will continue to occur as we lead into 2023. It doesn't feel as if it will be the whole year of 2023. However, that does depend on the time and the space that we put by for these shifts to naturally realign us to where we need to be going. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. It does feel as if, and I don't want to jump ahead too much into 2023, but the energy this week is going to almost train us to be aware of what it feels like when we're getting off kilter, when we're slightly straying. And, we've always believed that there is no going off path, that actually all paths lead home. And I do still strongly, firmly believe that, but to be very aware of that next year, that it can actually make the journey longer, more arduous and unnecessarily hard. So really tuning into what you feel. It's quick-paced energy, it's fast-paced energy, if we allow it to be what it is. If we try and make something what it isn't, because it's more palatable, because we want it to be that way, because we may not want to face the alternative, it's going to make the journey harder, particularly this week. So being very aware of regular themes that may be arising. So hang on, because it's quite, when you're in the flow this week and next year, but when you're in the flow this week, it's going to feel quite easy. When you're not, obviously, it's going to feel very long, drawn out, complicated, foggy. So this week, if anything feels foggy, okay, what are we trying to make convenient? What are we trying to form, to mold to our own taste this week? Next year is very much about working with what we are given to work with to the best of our ability. And it's not just about us next year. It is about the collective always, but in particular next year. So we're going to know when we're trying to almost put my cup down when we're trying to steer something off path for our own gain and our own benefit and our own entitlement. This week we are going to really feel that. And it isn't a punishment, it isn't that you can't have the things that you're trying to steer towards, just that there is an easier way. There is a much easier way, not just for you but for all involved. Okay, so now I can have a drink. Oh. And in that you will find regular themes this week, and I was going to share some themes that have come up for me, but actually they're applicable to me. Doesn't mean they'll be applicable to everyone else. And knowing that difference, almost like sleepy bugs in my eyes, where you get their little bits where you've been asleep for too long, like opening our eyes this week, knowing that there is a difference in what is relevant for you and what is relevant for others, allowing, supporting, empowering other people to find their own themes can only come when we recognise our place and what is occurring for us. Otherwise we end up projecting or transferring that. And next year, we've had that with the lovers this year with the reflection, but next year it's going to be in the background so that we can be aware of what is our actual driving force this week, but also as we go into 2023, what is driving us, what is guiding us, because what drives us guides us next year. So really being aware of that. If it's finances that are driving us next year, then it's going to be finances that guide us as well. So struggles with finances or financial opportunities or whatever. If it's love that drives us, it's going to be love or lack of love or different types of love that will guide us next year. So really figuring out what is going to guide you this week, knowing that we are going to get examples of that to guide and drive us forward into the following year. Okay, so with that in mind, and knowing the relevance of what is for you and what is for others, and observing and witnessing. Very fine art, very fine dance next year, and we're going to be very aware of that as we lead into it. A very fine dance of energies and knowing the steps, the to and the fro of life next year. It's interesting energy. Okay. It does feel almost Atlantean, but it feels like a mix of Atlantean and shamanic type energy. We've got the wheel. Of course, we've got the wheel at the bottom of the pack. So in order to bring down that high potential, so cliche and stereotypical, but the Atlantean energy, in order to bring down that high technology, that advancement, that evolution, we need the old ways as well. We need the shamanic approach. We need the adaptability to life. We need the application to life. And that is going to bring in the biggest changes next year. And what is going to help that? Us as the bridge, us as the change. Okay, so let's bring it back to this week. Yeah, the King of Wands. So always being aware of the big insights that are coming in, but always bringing it back to where we are, bringing it back to how we best navigate these energies by being present in them. That's going to be the fundamental. So next year we also have the Chariot and the Tower. When our fundamental foundations, when our structure isn't as solid as it could be, is going to be knocked. So really looking at that, really bringing it back to the self, really bring it back to what do I need to shift, what do I need to heal, is this mine, is this someone else's, is this applicable to me, has this rocked my foundation? Because if it has, your foundation wasn't that strong in the first place. So really doing that work this week leading into next year. I thought yesterday was going to be, and it's almost like I don't want to jinx myself, but no, it's true. I thought yesterday was going to be harder than it was. I really did. And it was hard. It was hard. Yesterday was really hard. And I didn't cover it up and I didn't not feel things. But what made it easier to navigate was because I didn't cover it up, because I allowed my body to feel, to heal, to shift what it needed to shift. I supported myself. So as my own foundation, I supported the process that I was going through. And that feels like the biggest gift this week, is to support yourself through whatever it is you are going through by listening to what it is you need in each moment. And it may not be in alignment with what you want long term, but there's a lot shifting to reassess what we want to put us back into balance, to what we want to put us back on the path to what we want. And we need to do that first. We need to do that first. We need to have those solid foundations. Okay. So yeah, what we really want, if we really want it, it's not going to be knocked. We're going to know that everything that is happening for us to achieve it, not against us. Okay, so it is about really standing in how firmly you believe in yourself to achieve what it is you want this week in particular. Don't box yourself in, right? Okay. Death and rebirth at the bottom of the pack. So I like this card. Now, the reason I used these cards, I was going to use the Wildwood Tarot, but I'm actually using the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann Donnelly. Now, the reason I'm using these cards is they can be very, they've got a lot of human characteristics to them, a lot of experience, a lot of physical living in them. You know, they portray people, they portray real life situations, and you know, it just felt like that could make it more applicable, make the energies more applicable. So to see situations this week through the eyes of the experience of the person that is undergoing them, empathy. So it may not feel as if that's right for you, this video included, but to see that that is that person's perception of what is occurring, your own included. So it may not be what you want, but to acknowledge that this is what you feel right now brings that huge death and rebirth. Now, I like this card because actually the star is right at the very center of the change occurring. So knowing that whatever is occurring around you, whatever shifts are happening, are all part of that higher vision. Okay. And carrying that through to next year, because the Tower card for next year comes before the Star, right? So knowing that everything that gets knocked had to be knocked because it wouldn't have reached us to the places that we needed to go. It's a great opportunity to look at, okay, this needs building on. So next year I personally have a lot of plans that I would like to do. And my health, right before Christmas, bang. Okay, yes, I'm clearing, yes, I'm shifting, but also that needs to be examined. That foundation needs to be examined, because without that health, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I want to do, the things that I've been drawn or called to do. That's the other thing. Keep an eye out this week, things that are calling you. So for me, it's horses, actually. Now I've got the Way of the Horse deck that I'm going to look at in a minute. I need to do it now. But for me, it's horses, and they've been literally calling me from my dream, my sleep, messages that are coming up on my Facebook, but also to physically calling me on a walk. I could hear them this morning. I'm nowhere near able to have my own horse in my own life, physically, financially, whatever, but that coming in is like, this is a potential. So what do you need to put in place to achieve that? Being very aware of that this week. What is calling you? What is calling you, and what do you need to start thinking about putting into place to make it a potential? So we have 24. Now this card just looks like the sands of time. I don't know if you can quite see the colours, but the colours there are just breathtaking, and they're like a fire, but they remind me of the desert. And we have the number 24, which is 2 and 4, which is 6, the lovers in the tarot, and this feels like an end message for this year. And it's obviously 2 is the High Priestess and 4 is the Empress. So an end message for the feminine and the masculine this year. And again, feels very poignant. What messages are coming up to be finalised before we enter the energies of next year? So we will look at what this message is, and then look at the energies for this week, because it feels like this needs to be dealt with, appreciated, respected first. Okay. So this card is Kairos, which is timing, opportunity, moments infused with meaning and choice. Emerging from a rainbow-coloured mist, a powerful horse approaches. Can you grab hold of his mane and leap onto his back before he moves beyond reach? It happens in a split second. So the gift of this card is to be sensitive to timing, because when we feel our own divine timing, again, it feels like one of the biggest lessons next year is to really recognise our own divine timing. When we feel our own divine timing, there won't be any of this squashing energy in, acting before we're ready, making life harder. It will just be it will flow with simplicity. And that very much is about minimal effort with this card. That is the gift, okay? Of really feeling into the timing, trusting the body. And the only way to do that is to be present, to really feel what is occurring. And the challenge with this card, the best laid plans can distract you from unexpected opportunities, yet you cannot force the issue. Sometimes you must wait patiently for an opening, then act without hesitation. So this morning, on the one hand, I'm getting plans for January and February from a work perspective. Oh, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. On the other hand, I'm getting insights about horses. It's like, whoa, okay. So yes, I could just leave that and do all of that. And smack bam in the middle, what do they both have in common? In order to do the work plans, my physical body needs to be stronger. In order to have horses, work with horses, be at one with the energy of the horse, I need to physically be in the moment and stronger more. So this week, the way to navigate the timing is always to look at the common denominator. What is the driving force behind them? So for the work plans and for the horses, for me, it is about opening up to that huge potential creative force and energy within me, not holding it back. It feels like the key for next year. If you're going to get anything for next year, open to your own huge creative force without holding it back, and ride it with free abandonment. This is you. Yeah, this is you, not boxing yourself in. So is there anything else? I like this. So this book is by Linda Kohavnoff, and it's The Way of the Horse, and it comes with the cards, which are just beautiful. And she has a quote here: every once in a while, when your timing is just right, the two of you hit the zone where time seems to disappear altogether, and you're riding in a heightened state of awareness. That sacred time where you suddenly feel in sync with the universe, where the reward becomes much more profound than a trophy or blue ribbon. It may last for a minute or an hour, but the elation is indescribable. Reach that zone this week. Really find yourself, and that's what yesterday brought, actually, and that's what made yesterday so easy. And I will say easy. There was obviously the busyness of Christmas, the loss of loved ones, my physical imbalances, but in each moment I returned to the zone. So this week, finding yourself, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in the things that you want to manifest, whether it's with your own body, whatever is occurring for you, find yourself in the zone. Bring yourself back into that space beyond space, that relaxation, that 0 point, that center. Okay, so regardless of the type of healings that happens, regardless of the type of channelings that come through, or the readings, or anything that is occurring, they all have one thing in common. Whether it's a person, an animal, the land, the energy comes back to center point. The energy comes back to a space of balance and homeostasis. So the body knows how to work when it's in balance. The soul knows how to work when it's in balance. Everything flows when it's in balance. Now, that doesn't mean that life is in balance continuously, but what it does mean is, as the person that's navigating life, keep bringing yourself back. I can't say it enough. Balance is key this week. Okay, so I'm very mindful that my dog has just stood up, so I'm just going to listen out, see if he needs to go anywhere. Being aware of the environment around you, being aware it may need adapting, it may need shifting. You may need to pause for the environment to catch up as well. I've really found that this week, that there's a lot of things that need completing, but that I've done everything that I can, and now it is about waiting for other parts of the situation to not catch up in a derogatory way, but to walk their path, to go through what they need to go through, to have their healing, their birth, their transitions, and be ready on a bigger scale, on a bigger vision. And that feels quite poignant as we lead into next year as well, and probably for the whole year. For myself, I go into numerically the number 8 for the following year halfway through, but definitely up to the half mark of next year, being aware that just because something isn't shifting doesn't mean it isn't time or isn't in alignment, just that there's other aspects at play here, and trying to just witness the bigger picture and ensuring that we're ready when the time is right to step up to that next part. Again, it's looking at our own foundations. We've got 9 of Cups at the bottom of the pack. Looking at our own foundations, if they are able to be wobbled, be it through impatience or financial concerns or whatever, then looking at that, using the gaps as the opportunity that they are to really strengthen our resolve next year and as we lead into next year. Okay. Remembering that resolutions is a breakdown of a resolution. So 9 of Cups at the top of the pack. So really looking at, it may not be that we chuck the baby out with the bathwater next year, but that's such an awful analogy, isn't it? It may not be that we chuck everything out next year, but looking at different ways to try and achieve the same thing, the resolutions here. And if there are certain ones that make you think, oh no, then they're not. They're not, okay? Letting them go so that you can bring back that energy to other things that you may want to concentrate on. Okay. And solidifying that. So I know 9 of Swords. No, I know the 9 of Swords. I've for some time over the last few years questioned whether or not to go back to midwifery, whether or not I'd have to do quite a bit of retraining, but whether or not to go back to midwifery. Even though physically I couldn't, even though with the NHS and the way things are going on, I'm not happy there's enough changes that have occurred for me to do that. It would be an idea that I would toy with, a safety net. Yeah, thank you, a safety net. Really looking at our safety nets this week in particular before we go into next year. So instead I've actually applied for my pension and I've let everything else end because I needed that solid. I needed that end to be solidified in order to move forward from the 9 of Swords. So really looking this week at things that we may have used as a convenience, as a safety net. I can always go back to that. Now, it's not saying that you can't. It's not saying that that isn't part of the path, but how does it feel? How does it really genuinely feel? Is it something that you want to do? Because if it hasn't got that driving force, remember, look at the driving force. It's that that's going to guide us. So with me, with the midwifery, what was guiding me was uncertainty. Okay, because that was the driving force. So unless you think, yes, that's what I want to take through, let it go. Mark it somehow so that you cannot go back, so that you cannot look back, so that it doesn't continue to affect the forward movement that is available through questioning and insecurities, because there's a lot of insecurities that are actually wobbling our framework unnecessarily because we are concerned about letting them go. Mark it now. Draw that line in the sand. Mark it. I'm not going back to that, because what happens then is we make space for something else to come in. Okay, so I'm not sure I have to do much more. 23, and it's true, we don't really have to do much more than that. You know, we don't have to say yes, hanged man. We don't have to say yes to everything that falls into our path. We don't have to say, oh, I need to do that because there was a sign and a synchronicity. How does it feel? It's cooperation here. Much as leading from control, from our perspective, is an entitled way of being, seeing the universe that way can have that too. So it's about balance next year. It's about that co-collaboration, which it has been for the last few years, but really taking it up a notch next year in knowing that you don't have to say yes to everything. You don't. How does it feel? It might not quite be what you're looking for. Again, it's about trusting divine timing next year, trusting our own ability to recognize our own divine timing next year. Okay. So with that in mind, let's have a quick look at how to best bring it back. Yeah, Knight of Wands, bring it back. Horse there. How to best navigate the energies this week. Okay, so we have the Tower at the bottom of the pack. And what I'm feeling drawn to do, because there was a horse on the card, is to actually draw a card. I can really feel my eye like in the corner. So we have looks like Chiron at the bottom with the healing and the archer, half man, half horse, embodying that medicine within us, that horse medicine within us. And then we have, oh, look at this, just a complete and utter free spirit. Now in the tarot, number 1 is the Magician. Okay, and it does feel very much like a magic there, the ability to be free in our own magic and use that vibration of the horse. You know, the horse is so grounded with its mane in the sky, but it's 4 feet on the ground, so grounded in its own force and its own power. And that feels like key this week. So let's have a little look. Yeah, every time we, oh gosh, I really relate to this card now. Every time we question our foundations, what we're actually doing is questioning ourselves. Okay, so really going deeper this week and looking at why we're questioning that. I would really like X, Y, Z, but I don't think I can get it. Why? Why, where do you feel you are unable to achieve that? And really looking at where that comes from, because this card is the field of dreams. Unexpressed vitality and imagination, the heart's desire, self-care, supporting the innovation. A magnificent dark bay horse runs free through fields of lavender. Excuse me, I really feel that in my throat. Speak up, yeah. And look at the communication we are having with ourselves. So the gift, no matter how disconnected you feel from the needs of your own soul, this image reminds you that the restless spirit inside, the one that sometimes feels dominated and spurred on by the demands of society and survival, that dark horse racing through your dreams is not so much running away from responsibility as galloping towards the fulfillment of your deepest heart desire. Guys, this week, if it doesn't feel right, trust that. Trust that, and trust that it is moving you towards something that does. And it might not be convenient, and it might be a sudden change at the last minute, and it might be totally turned upside down type energy, because we do have the Tower, and that is next year. It might not seem convenient. When I left midwifery, everyone was like, what are you doing? You know, you have a qualification for life, what are you doing? But you have to go with what you feel is right for you, particularly this week, because it's that gives that archer energy. So the challenge, the temptation to rein in this horse, Boxing Day, to fit it in, to squash it, to control that energy. And all he represents is premature. Turn him loose, let him play, watch him express himself on his own terms, and he'll lead you to a more soulful relationship with power, intuition, instinct, and creativity. Beautiful, beautiful. In this field of dreams, you will glimpse a new way of being that may someday give you an edge in the show ring, inspire a whole new training method, or simply allow you to enjoy the full potential of a close, mutually empowering relationship with the horses in your life. Now that obviously doesn't mean just the physical horses, although if you have horses, fantastic, but your soul. Yeah, your connection to the universe, your connection to your power, to your energy, to your intuition. Imagine how that would feel to not fight it, to not squash it down, to run free with it. Imagine how that would feel this week, and allow space for that. Let the mind run wild with imagination. Because we then have card 34, which does remind me of Chiron. Does remind me of the Centaur, and of course next year Chiron. Multidisciplinary genius, holistic healing, and the wounded healer. One of the biggest lessons behind any healing, yes, we have the balance, but what knocks us out of balance in the first place? The worth. Okay, one of the biggest lessons behind everything that we go through is our own worth. The biggest wound. Okay, and then when we have that wounded healer type energy. Rears with power and focus, aiming his bow at the heavens. So the gift is the organic synergy of instinct, intuition, and reason, which gives rise to true brilliance. And we have 3 and 4, which is 7, which is next year. It's the Chariot year. Okay. The challenge, a deeper integration of body, mind, and spirit, sometimes emerges through an illness or accident. Healing requires accessing the wisdom behind the wound. So again, looking at those common themes this week, looking at things that may be coming up, looking at aspects that we might not have wanted to face, being open to the changes and the shifts that need to occur in order to get the gifts and the firmer foundations and the insight now needed to move forward. Okay, be really, really open to that this week. Okay, so 29 minutes. Let's just do a weekly Look at the energies. Being open to however long it takes, right? Whatever needs to come through. Okay. Wow, we have the Tower at the bottom of the pack again, guys. And you saw me shuffle that. So, okay. Monday, Tuesday. And it's almost like a sigh. Everything just fell off the record player. Yeah, it's almost like a sigh of relief, like knowing that these things need to shift and knowing that we may have done all we think we can do in order to shift them, and that they keep repeating like the record player, and everything just falling off now. Just falling off, and being like, okay, what now? What now? I've tried to figure it out. Now I need help. And that feels like he's seeking help as and when needed. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which is New Year's Eve. Okay, Sunday, overall. Interesting. Okay. So we have the Tower at the bottom of the pack, and underneath that we have the Wheel. Knowing, again, all these shifts are here to change things. All these shifts are here to help us move forward, because on the Monday we have the Three of Wands, and it isn't something that we don't already know. But what I feel really drawn to recognise here is look at the surfboard. Next year we're on the Chariot, which, you know, is the Cancerian crab. We are talking psyche, we are talking subconscious, we are talking emotions. What is going to help us navigate them? In order to move forward, we need to not realise so much where it is we are moving forward to, or even where we are, but what is going to drive us forward? What is going to be our foundation into 2023? If we're going to think about resolutions or resolutions or things that we need to put into place, that is the key. What is driving us forward next year? Because on the Tuesday we have the Two of Wands. It's almost like a back step. Okay, so not quite sure where I want to go, know where I've been, a little bit aware of the driving force, but taking that step back now. We may have ideas of what it is that will be moving us on, but taking that step back on the Tuesday to be like, right, I need help from the universe as well. Because that freedom, you can see she's looking outside for that freedom. She almost wants to have the nomad lifestyle here and travel the world and see the world, which next year is definitely going to come to the surface. Again, it is the year of the traveller. But in order to have that freedom, she's still almost got like Christmas decorations hanging up. It's like, okay, but not quite there yet. Look at what is going to drive us forward. Yes, it could be that we want freedom. It could be that we want love. It could be that we need more financial input, success, whatever. Taking that step back, waiting, pausing, knowing that something else may be coming in, that something else needs to come in. On the Wednesday, we have the Six of Cups. And what I can really see here is an inner energy that almost needs to shift. And it is about what we give and what we expect in return. What we are willing to open up to. So every time we ask for something, every time we would like to manifest something, every time we listen to our soul's yearning, we also know that that means we need to do da-da-da-da-da. I always wanted to do healing work for as long as I can remember, and I did a lot of it in midwifery, but it came to a point with midwifery that I knew something had to give, and in order to do what I wanted to do, I needed to move forward from that. I needed to be more open to other potential, and that can be quite nerve-wracking. That can cause a bit of a shift in us by the Thursday, that Five of Wands moment. So we've had on the Monday and the Tuesday the wanting to move forward, the knowing we need to recognize what it is that's driving us forward, the having the patience, almost like an okay from the universe or from our soul, taking moments to feel into that. And then on the Thursday it all starts to come together, and it's like, yes, okay, you can do da 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 da, and it's like, what? I don't know how I feel about that. Being very aware on the Thursday of the very obstacles that we may put in the way of our own path, but also recognising that they are there to help us believe in ourselves. They are there to help us look at our foundations and how strong we actually have our own footing as we get ready into next year. On the Friday, lots and lots of ideas. Page of Swords here. Not being aware of them, knowing that they are leading us forward, but almost having our head in an old story on the Friday, which is that needs to come to light before we go into next year. There is no point having these grand visions or being aware of the very vision that the earth may want of us if we are in an old story that prohibits us from looking at it, listening to it, feeling to it, or aligning to it. That is going to come to light by the weekend, because on the Saturday, be it relationships, New Year's Eve, right? Out having that, we have the Knight of Cups here, out having that drink, that celebration, be it relationships, be it opportunities, there is potential to doubt it there. What is actually going on here? How do I actually feel about what is being offered? Really looking at where that comes from. Is it coming from our own journey, our own story, our own fears, in our ability to cope if it isn't quite what we want? Wow, have we not done that over the last few years and strengthened our resolve anyway? Really looking at that. And I have to pull another horse card, because there is a horse on this card. So for New Year's Eve, wow, we have the Lion Heart card. Now I know this one because it always reminds me of the Leo card, the Lion Heart, but we also have it's number 7. Okay, so really trusting our heart. Now, I need to pause the camera because my cat's calling. Perfectly timed. Right, where were we? That's really interesting energy, because that was my cat calling, just as we talk about the Leo and the Lion Heart. But she never knows what she wants. Okay, so I've actually just put it outside. So it's about not being distracted this weekend by people or situations that aren't quite sure, that aren't quite certain, ourselves included. So being aware of that, actually we may be calling for something that we don't feel ready for at the moment. With the dreams of the horses, oh gosh, yes, emotionally I'm ready. Physically, definitely not at the moment. So being very aware of what's being reflected back to us. We may want these things, but we may not be ready, or we may be uncertain of what we want, and that's okay too. The Lion Heart is about taking time to assess what's actually in our chest, what's actually driving us forward, okay, what's actually going to guide us. And again, we have that number 7 of the Chariot next year. The other card we have, 27, unions and reflections here. I think this card is called Merlin's Spirit, but let's have a look. I'm very aware. I've just cut my lip as well. Oh, so, right. Yes, Lion Heart. Protecting without sacrificing sensitivity, assertiveness without aggression, the courage to feel and the willingness to act. So again, it's going back to that divine timing, acting when it feels right. Human beings carry the wisdom of both predator and prey. True empowerment depends on finding a balance between the two. Cultivating the strength of your inner lion without letting it run amok is tricky. If you don't have enough lion, people will walk all over you, and you'll lack the conviction and focus to follow your dreams. If you have too much lion, you'll lose the sensitivity that nurtures relationships and creativity. So it is very much about feeling in on the Saturday, on the New Year's Eve, with the resolutions and the celebrations and the, we're going to start a new year. Really feeling into what it is that calls you, what it is that is doable, being very realistic with that. And I feel compassion. I feel lots of warmth around my heart, having compassion for yourself as you go into the new year. Because the other card that we have, I'm almost certain it's called Merlin's Spirit, which is just beautiful. just ended up back on the page of Chiron. Okay. What I felt drawn, what I really heard, it is called Merlin Spirit. What I really heard is to look at what we see. Yes, to be aware of what it could mean in the book. Now, I always say this, but to be really aware intuitively of what is being reflected. So I already knew what it was. That feels like key Saturday, New Year's Eve, knowing what you know, okay, and being very sure in that. So a lot of the times when we repeat similar lessons or situations, it's because we don't trust our foundation. We don't trust what we know. As we lead into next year and for next year, being very aware of what is in front of us and trusting we know what we know. That's going to be the Tower card. That's the ultimate pivotal moment. Redemption of the masculine, mutual transformation, and the new hero's journey. What a beautiful card as we enter 2023. Power and gentleness find a new way to coexist, balance, and finally heal the immense injustices perpetrated by and on the masculine body, mind, and spirit. Now, when we talk about the masculine body, it's our actions, it's our thoughts, it's our ability to act, if you will, to think something and to act. So, and not question that so much, to have that firm, solid base in the knowing that what we have done is what was needed. Okay. The challenge, true masculinity has been twisted, tortured and betrayed by a culture of conquest and consumerism. It's hard to fathom what a peaceful, healthy form of virility might look like. To have any hope of changing the world, men and women must reevaluate and re-socialise the active masculine principle within their own families and their own psyches, a task requiring significant soul searching and imagination. Okay, so I say it all the time. I see many posts about the divine feminine, and not one of them says what a divine feminine should be, and yet the amount of masculine posts that suggest what the sacred masculine is. Having compassion for that, stepping back, witnessing what we are and continue to do to our actions and our judgments on them, and the masculines in our life and our judgments on them, and the very things that are being offered. So let's take this a step further. When we think of the masculine, obviously the feminine is the moon, the going within, the reflective, the womb wisdom. The masculine, the earth, if you will, the physical body. The masculine is source and spirit. So if we are constantly questioning or attacking that, and then asking that same energy, whether it's our soul, our future self, whatever, for help, how is that going to navigate? How is that going to pan out? If we're going to look at any relationships this week that are out of balance, look at the one that we have with our very higher self and the vision we are working towards, and source itself. Because there is no point putting things in place if we do not trust the guiding force. And it is really time to trust our own ability, to trust the people that we have in our life as a reflection of us, but also to trust our connection with source, to trust our oneness with our own potential this week, because it's that that's being offered. And if that doesn't feel right, looking at that, what is being reflected here? Because Sunday, the card for New Year's Day is Temperance, the midwife, the ability to deliver, the ability to balance out everything that is occurring, the light, the dark, what was, what will be, the ability to hold space and witness the changes and know that we are solid in who we are, that we have got this, that it is all part of the bigger picture here. Okay, so what is the bigger picture? The knowing that the changes that are occurring and the very things we have asked for and been asked of us in order to create what it is we are trying to deliver. Because the overall card for this week is the Empress. Creativity is the bigger picture as we enter into 2023. Our belief in it, our connection to it, our, I'm going to say it again, ability to hold space for it, to channel it, to deliver it. our potential as creators is the theme as we go into 2023. We can look at the Chariot, we can look at the need to balance the light, the dark, the power, the gentility. We can look at the collective, we can look at the individual. If we do not examine, witness, hold space, facilitate, empower, conceive, and produce the idea that we are creating the universe we are trying to create, none of this shifts, none of this changes. It is about us putting our chin down, having belief in our ability to crown now our own sovereign self. Okay, so stepping back, we have 1, 2, 3 major arcanas. I'll do that in a moment. Just been drawn to pull one more horse card, but 3 major arcanas. So we are talking about a time of creativity, of delivery, of change. And those 3 major arcanas are the Tower, the Empress, and Temperance. How well do we hold space? How well do we witness the shifts that need to occur? How well do we initiate change? How well do we support change, even in our own thinking? New Year's Eve, something may come up that makes us think, oh, this could be an opportunity or a potential. But if we're still thinking about situations in an old way, how are we supporting change here? There would be nothing worse than looking after somebody in labour all day, all night, however long that may take, and just every time they feel like they want to push, saying, well, you felt that last time. That is not empowering, that is disempowering. Okay, so really looking at that this week. How are you facilitating the change that you are trying to achieve? What resolutions are being destroyed before they've even had a chance to be conceived? Well, I tried that, it didn't work. Okay, what did work? What can you take from that to move forward this week? How can you create a better situation of what has occurred? So we then have 1, 2, 3 wand cards. Again, we're talking about that creative energy, and it's a real fiery energy as we go into 2023, potentially. Now, I was a bit surprised that it was a fiery energy, and it's because it's only potentially a fiery energy here. We do have the 3, the 2, and the 5 of wands. It all depends on how we want to see it. It all depends on whether we see this as an opportunity to move forward, whether we see it as an opportunity to pause, and our ability to balance both in order to actually not move forward but move up. Okay, so move up in our vibration, move up in a situation, move up in our ability to see things, move up towards our soul's potential. Because the wands are our spirit, right? Okay, we then have 1, 2 cup cards, a beautiful, beautiful balance and union here of the 6 of cups and the Knight of Cups. If we aren't getting what we are giving, how does that make us feel? Is that an issue? What are we going to do about it? It may not even be an issue for you. If it is, what are you going to do about it? If it is, what narratives are occurring when someone offers you something? You know, and why are they occurring? Sometimes I get a narrative of, what does somebody want? And when they contact me out of the blue, and it's an old wound that I work with, and it's definitely occurs when I'm not looking after my own needs. So what is actually going on here? What fears are stopping the balance? We can point our fingers at it being people. We're not getting back what we give, or, you know, oh, we need to work at this, we need to work at that, we need to put in boundaries, da 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 da. What is going on inside us to stop that balance? What is that lack of balance having as an impact on us and how we choose to see the world? Really, really being aware of that this week. Because we have 1 sword card, and it's the Page of Swords. It's not the Queen and it's not the King. So we're not nurturing here. We're not owning our own mental thoughts. We're starting again. We're starting again, and we're looking, the only way to do that is to look at the story that we are still connected to. It's one thing to have all these ideas, you know, these beautiful illuminating ideas, but the knife's edge is going to come next year from the stories that we are still looking at. How are those ideas applicable? Have they been fed by that story? In what sense? In a positive sense, in a negative sense, in a way that's going to help us move forward, or a way that's going to wobble us? And knowing underneath it all, it's all part of the balance anyway. It's all part of the balance, it's all part of the path, it's all part of the journey. Tread lightly, tread gently upon the belly of our mother, upon the very womb of Pachamama. Go easy with yourself. How you treat yourself is how you're going to treat others. How you treat others is how you treat the earth. Being very, very, very aware of that as we go into 2023. So let's have one more card, and we'll go with the energy of the horse, because why wouldn't we? But yeah, let's go with the energy of the horse. So we have this card here, which again, number 25, just happens to add up to 7. Can you see that? Yep. So number 2, High Priestess. In these times of darkness, in these times of struggles, in these times of wisdom and endings and change and tower moments and all of it, descending down to the very pits of what we thought we were capable of over the last few years. Next to it we have the number 5, the Hierophant. What have we learned about our own faith, about our own trust in ourselves and each other, about the lessons that have occurred? It makes me hungry. It makes me hungry, because then adding that up with the 7, how are we going to choose to move forward with that collectively and individually in the Chariot year next year? So here, I love this card. It's like the light and dark, a reflection of itself, a balance of itself. So let's have a little look. And yet in my stomach, I feel like I may have got that wrong. That may not even be what that means. Trusting that. Trusting it may not look like what it is. It may not be what someone else has experienced or explained or understood, but it is a new way of being, a new way of feeling. It's a trust that's beyond, when you get that real gut trust, it's lighter than that that's coming in for next year. It's a different type of trust. It's a third eye crown trust, actually. It's not as rooted, it's not as obvious in the physical things that are occurring around us. It's lighter. It's a lighter trust. That may wobble people, but trust is trust. Trust is trust. And it's a little bit like, when I talk about the light and the dark, for me it's different densities, and trust is the same. Same with love, same with all of it. Trust is the same, and it's a different density. So rather than it being a solid, yeah, I really trust that, it's lighter and it has excitement and hope with it as well. It doesn't mean it's not trust and acting on that. Okay, so number 25. Attraction. Of course. Of course. Trusting attraction. Trusting that we attract things to us for a reason. Okay, and lightening up about that. Rather than, oh gosh, it means this, this and this. Trusting that we've attracted that to gain something out of it. Okay, and trusting ourselves in that process. Love's potential overall for this week, for next year, I've got nowhere to put it. Literally, I've got nowhere to put love's potential. So maybe looking at that. Okay, maybe looking at where we put the potential of love on our work desk, in our life, in front of the screen. Where is the potential of love in regards to what's driving us forward? Relationship challenges and emotional resonance. A stunning grey stallion nuzzles his dark bay mare, deepening affection and understanding. The gift. Sometimes opposites attract. Sometimes like attracts like. The harmony and dissonance of relationship is the music of life and path to self-realization. The challenge, separating the flesh and blood object of your affection from fantasy and projection, is well worth the initial confusion of disappointment. So what have we got here? Okay. Beautiful. So this card very much speaks about having the awareness to know what has attracted us to somebody. Not so much to question why something has happened, but what it is that is actually attracting us. And to be very, very consciously aware of that as we lead into next year, but next year as well. If we're thinking, I just want a relationship that is ease and grace, and then we attract that, and then we start to think, well, actually, I wanted a long-term relationship, remembering what we wanted and how we initiated that. So this card also speaks of people that have been through certain situations attracting very similar, in particular abuse, trauma, the wounded healer, knowing why we attract these situations and what it is that they are there to bring with gratitude. Okay, being very, very, very aware of that. In order to get a more balanced chord of well-being. In any endeavour, choosing a partner you resonate with fosters compassion and understanding while shining a spotlight on old patterns and unresolved issues. And I want to say this again. Okay, so we often think that relationships, the soulmate relationship, the twin flame relationship, is perfect, it's easy, it's, simple. That doesn't mean that we don't have ups and downs. Life is full of ups and downs. So we could be in a job that is incredible, but it's not. It has ups and downs. Okay, life is consistent with change. So there's going to be continual, especially as we go into next year, waves of potential. And it is about seeing those ups and downs as waves of potential. Because I want to read this out again. In any endeavour, choosing a partner you resonate with, any endeavour, fosters compassion and understanding while shining a spotlight on old patterns and unresolved issues. There's this big assumption that relationships, jobs, you always look outside and someone has got it good. And for the most part we have, but looking at what we build upon in regards to that, looking at the very beliefs, values and core structures that we have continued to build on and how relevant they actually are to the life and the world that we now live in. Okay, so, we can compare relationships to those of our parents or those of people around us or whatever. How honest is that relationship being portrayed and how relevant is that to your life right now? Figuring out what works for you, that's the biggest spotlight this year. The difficulty of relationship is part of its transformative power. Whatever we go through is there to help transform ourselves and our own potential. If you're willing to honestly reflect on your own projections and fantasies, the goal of clearly seeing, appreciating and dancing with another becomes a path to self-realization. Next year we can point fingers or we can say, okay, what am I being shown? And this week we're going to get a practice run into that. So choose your mirrors wisely, be open to the information that wants to come in and the very driving force behind it as we go into looking at potential resolutions to 2023. Take care and I will see you on the 2nd of January. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care.